August 3, 1934. This newspaper received reports of an incident at the Savoy Ballroom last night that has sent shockwaves through Harlem's underworld. Sources present at the scene describe what happened as not merely a confrontation between rival gangsters, but a deliberate act of public humiliation that, according to multiple witnesses, may result in unprecedented bloodshed. At approximately 11:15 p.m. on Thursday, Augustus Eneda Artur Flegenheimer, known to the criminal underworld as Dutch Schultz, entered the Savoy Ballroom on Lenox Avenue with 6 armed associates. The Savoy, Harlem's most prestigious entertainment venue, was hosting its regular Thursday night swing dance. Over 400 patrons, predominantly Negro, were present. Among them was Ellsworth Raymond Johnson, the 28-year-old enforcer known throughout Harlem as Bumpy Johnson. What occurred next has been corroborated by no fewer than 17 witnesses who spoke to this newspaper on condition of anonymity, fearing reprisal from both parties involved. According to these accounts, Mr. Schultz approached the table where Mr. Johnson was seated with 3 unidentified associates. Without provocation, Mr. Schultz is alleged to have addressed Mr. Johnson using language this newspaper cannot print, but which multiple sources describe as deliberately and explicitly racist in nature. One witness, a 34-year-old waitress who served both men that evening, stated that Mr. Schultz specifically referred to Mr. Johnson using a racial epithet and demanded he vacate the establishment, immediately declaring that colorists should know better than to sit in the presence of white businessmen. Mr. Johnson, according to all witnesses, remained seated and did not respond verbally to these provocations. The witness accounts diverge slightly on what happened next, but all agree on the essential facts. Mr. Schultz, apparently incensed by Mr. Johnson's refusal to move, took the glass of bourbon Mr. Johnson had been drinking and poured its contents over Mr. Johnson's head. He then threw the empty glass to the floor, where it shattered, and walked out of the Savoy Ballroom with his associates, laughing audibly. The ballroom fell silent. Mr. Johnson sat motionless for approximately 30 seconds, bourbon dripping from his face, and soaking his suit jacket, before standing, removing his jacket, and walking to the men's room to clean himself. He departed the Savoy approximately 15 minutes later without speaking to anyone. To understand the significance of this incident, one must understand the current state of Harlem's criminal economy. For the past 18 months, Mr. Schultz, a German Jewish bootlegger from the Bronx, has been attempting to seize control of Harlem's numbers racket, an illegal lottery operation currently controlled by Stephanie St. Clair, a Negro woman known as Madame Queen. Miss St. Clair has employed Mr. Johnson as her chief enforcer since his release from Sing Sing prison in 1932. The conflict between the Schultz organization and the St. Clair operation has resulted in numerous violent incidents, including at least 6 confirmed murders and several disappearances. However, until last night's incident at the Savoy, the conflict had remained largely within the boundaries of the criminal underworld, with violence directed at soldiers and operatives rather than the principals themselves. Mr. Schultz's decision to publicly humiliate Mr. Johnson in front of 400 witnesses, many of them prominent members of Harlem's Negro community, represents a significant escalation. Criminal justice experts consulted by this newspaper suggest that such a public attack on Mr. Johnson's dignity makes violent retaliation not merely likely, but virtually inevitable, as failure to respond would destroy Mr. Johnson's reputation and effectiveness as an enforcer. The question is not whether Mr. Johnson will retaliate, these experts say, but when and how severely. This newspaper did not have to wait long for an answer. August 3, 1934. Las 6:47 a.m. The body of Vincent Kyle Jr., age 24. An associate of Mr. Schultz known to operate policy collection routes in East Harlem, was discovered in an alley behind 142nd Street and Lenox Avenue. According to police sources, Mr. Cole had been shot twice in the back of the head at close range. A playing card, the ace of spades, was found in his jacket pocket. Police initially believed this to be an unrelated gangland killing until they discovered that Mr. Cole had been present at the Savoy Ballroom the previous evening as one of Mr. Schultz's 6 associates. August 3, 1934, to 15 p.m. Police were called to a warehouse on 149th Street, where 2 more bodies were discovered. The victims have been identified as Thomas Dorsey, Aji 31, and Michael Hannigan, Aji 27, both known associates of the Schultz organization. Both men had been beaten before being shot. Both had ace of spades, playing cards placed on their bodies. Both men were confirmed by multiple witnesses to have been present at the Savoy Ballroom incident. Police Commissioner Louis Valentine issued a statement this afternoon acknowledging that the department is investigating a possible connection between last night's Savoy incident and today's three murders. However, the commissioner emphasized that no arrests have been made and that both Mr. Johnson and Mr. Schultz are merely persons of interest at this time. This newspaper spoke with several residents of Harlem who witnessed the aftermath of this morning's discoveries. The sentiment among them is remarkably uniform. Mr. Johnson, they say, is sending a message. One resident, a 42-year-old shopkeeper on Lenox Avenue who declined to provide his name, stated it plainly. Dutch Schultz thought he could embarrass Bumpy in front of the whole neighborhood. Now Dutch is learning what that costs. This isn't over, not by a long shot. Another resident, a 56-year-old woman who works as a domestic servant, expressed both fear and a certain grim satisfaction. We're all scared about what's coming. There's going to be more killing. Everyone knows it. But at the same time, a lot of us are glad to see Bumpy stand up. Dutch and his people. They think they can come into Harlem and treat us like we're nothing. Treat our men like they're nothing. Well, Bumpy's showing them different. August 4th, 1934, 4:32 a.m. This newspaper has learned that 2 more bodies were discovered overnight, bringing the total death toll in this apparent retaliation campaign to 5 men in less than 24 hours. The victims, identified as Robert McCarthy, aged 29, and Dennis Sullivan, age 33, were found in separate locations. McCarthy in his automobile on 135th Street, Sullivan in the basement of a building he owned on 147th Street. Both men were shot multiple times. Both had ace of spades cards placed with their butt. Police sources confirm that both men were present at the Savoy Ballroom on Thursday evening. Mr. Schultz has not made any public statement regarding these killings. However, sources within the Schultz organization, speaking on condition of anonymity, describe a state of panic among his associates. According to these sources, Mr. Schultz has ordered all of his Harlem operatives to work in groups of no fewer than 4 men and to avoid being alone at any time. He has also reportedly offered a $10,000 reward for information leading to Mr. Johnson's whereabouts, though no one in Harlem appears willing to claim such a reward. One source within the Schultz organization told this newspaper Dutch thought he was making Bumpy look weak. Instead, he started a war he might not be able to win. Every man Dutch has in Harlem is looking over his shoulder now. They know their targets. They know Bumpy's coming for them, and they know Dutch can't protect them. The Harlem community's response to these killings has been complex. While many residents express fear about the violence erupting in their neighborhood, there is also an undercurrent of support for Mr. Johnson's actions. Several Negro business owners interviewed by this newspaper, all speaking anonymously, characterized the Savoy incident as emblematic of the broader treatment Negro Harlemites receive from white criminal organizations, attempting to operate in their neighborhood. Dutch Schultz comes into our neighborhood, tries to take our businesses, treats our people like dirt, and thinks there won't be consequences. One business owner stated, "What Bumpy's doing, it's not just about him. It's about showing that we won't be disrespected in our own community." That might sound strange, coming from people talking about gangsters, but that's how a lot of us see it. August 4th, 1934, 9:18 p.m. This newspaper has confirmed a 6th death connected to the Savoy Ballroom incident. Anthony Russo, age 35, a Polizzi bank operator who worked for the Schultz organization, was found shot to death in his office on 138th Street this evening. As with the previous 5 victims, an ace of spades card was left at the scene. Mr. Russo was confirmed to have been present at the Savoy on Thursday evening. Police sources indicate that Mr. Russo's death is particularly significant because he was not merely a foot soldier but a mid-level manager within the Schultz organization, responsible for overseeing collection operations in central Harlem. His killing suggests that Mr. Johnson is not simply targeting the men who witnessed his humiliation, but is systematically dismantling Mr. Schultz's Harlem infrastructure. This newspaper attempted to reach Mr. Schultz for comment at his known business addresses in the Bronx, but received no response. We also attempted to reach Mr. Johnson, but were unable to locate him. Community sources indicate that Mr. Johnson has not been seen publicly since departing the Savoy Ballroom on Thursday evening. Harlem residents report that the neighborhood has taken on an atmosphere of tense anticipation. Everyone's waiting, a local minister told this newspaper, waiting to see how many more will die. Waiting to see if Dutch Schultz will retaliate, waiting to see if this war will consume the whole neighborhood. We're praying for peace, but we're preparing for more violence. The question facing both law enforcement and Harlem residents is the same. Will this killing spree end with the 6 men who were present at the Savoy, or will it escalate into something far worse? Criminal justice experts suggest that Mr. Johnson has likely prepared a list of targets and will continue his campaign until that list is exhausted or until Mr. Schultz takes action to stop him, either through negotiation or through his own violent response. Police Commissioner Valentine announced this evening that he is deploying additional officers to Harlem, though he acknowledged that police resources are stretched thin and that preventing further gangland killings will be extremely difficult, given the apparent planning and precision of Mr. Johnson's campaign. August 5, 1934, 5:43 a.m. This newspaper can now confirm that the death toll has reached 8. 2 more associates of the Schultz organization were found murdered overnight. Francis O'Brien, age 38, and William Cassidy, age 31, both policy collectors who operated in Harlem, were discovered in a vacant building on 145th Street. Both had been shot execution style. Both had Ace of Spades cards placed on their bodies. Police sources confirm that both men were present at the Savoy Ballroom incident on Thursday evening. What began 72 hours ago as a public humiliation has now resulted in 8 confirmed deaths, all connected to the Schultz organization, all witnesses to the incident that sparked this campaign of retribution. This newspaper has learned from multiple sources within the criminal underworld that Mr. Schultz held an emergency meeting yesterday evening with his top lieutenants to discuss the crisis. According to these sources, Mr. Schultz is facing pressure from his own organization to either withdraw from Harlem entirely or to launch a massive retaliatory strike against Mr. Johnson and the St. Clair operation. The sources describe Mr. Schultz as furious, but also genuinely surprised by the scale and speed of Mr. Johnson's response. One source who attended the meeting stated that Mr. Schultz repeatedly said he had not expected such a disproportionate reaction to what he characterized as a minor incident. This characterization, however, reveals a fundamental misunderstanding on Mr. Schultz's part of both the nature of respect in Harlem's Negro community and Mr. Johnson's reputation as an enforcer who never makes empty threats. The racial dimensions of this conflict cannot be ignored. While this newspaper typically refrains from editorial commentary in its news reporting, the facts of this case make certain observations unavoidable. Mr. Schultz, a white criminal operating primarily in white neighborhoods, made a calculated decision to humiliate a Negro man in front of hundreds of Negro witnesses. He apparently believed that the racial power dynamics that operate in legitimate society would also operate in the criminal underworld, that Mr. Johnson would be constrained by his race from responding too aggressively against a white mobster. This calculation has proven catastrophically wrong. Mr. Johnson has demonstrated that, in Harlem's underworld, respect is not determined by race, but by reputation, and that his reputation is built on a willingness to exact terrible costs on those who cross him. Several prominent Negro community leaders spoke to this newspaper yesterday, all requesting anonymity. Their perspectives on these killings reflect the complicated position in which Harlem's law-abiding residents find themselves. One minister stated, "We don't condone violence. We don't support criminal activity. But we also can't ignore the fact that Dutch Schultz came into our community, tried to take over our businesses, and thought he could treat our people with contempt. What Bumpy Johnson is doing is wrong in the eyes of the law, but in the eyes of many in this community, it's justice. That's the tragedy of our situation. When the law doesn't protect us, when white power thinks it can abuse us without consequence, we end up looking to men like Bumpy Johnson to defend our dignity." August 5, 1934, 3:27 p.m. The death toll has now reached 10. Carl Schmidt, age 41, and Otto Berman, age 35, both senior associates of Mr. Schultz, who managed his Harlem operations, were found dead in a warehouse on 151st Street this afternoon. Unlike the previous victims, these men were not merely shot, but showed signs of extended torture before their deaths. Ace of spades cards were found with both. Police sources indicate that both men were present at the Savoy Ballroom on Thursday evening. The killing of Mr. Schmidt and Mr. Berman represents a significant escalation, as these were not foot soldiers but key figures in the Schultz organization's hierarchy. Their deaths have, according to Underworld sources, effectively destroyed Mr. Schultz's ability to operate in Harlem, as the infrastructure they managed has collapsed with their murders. This newspaper has learned that Mr. Schultz attempted to contact Miss St. Clair through intermediaries this morning, requesting a meeting to negotiate an end to the violence. According to our sources, Miss St. Clair declined the meeting, but sent a message through the intermediaries. Her message, as reported to this newspaper, was brief. Tell Dutch Schultz that Bumpy Johnson is not my employee. He is my partner. What Bumpy does, he does not because I order it, but because he chooses it. If Dutch Schultz wants this to end, he should leave Harlem and never come back. That's the only negotiation I'm interested in. The response from the Schultz organization to this message has not been made public, but sources indicate that Mr. Schultz is now actively considering a complete withdrawal from Harlem operations. The financial cost of continuing to operate in Harlem, combined with the apparent impossibility of protecting his people from Mr. Johnson's systematic campaign, has made the Harlem numbers racket more liability than asset. One source within the Schultz organization told this newspaper, Dutch built his empire on being the toughest, most ruthless guy in the room. But Bumpy Johnson is showing him that being tough doesn't matter if your people are too afraid to work for you. Every collector Dutch has in Harlem is quitting. They're not willing to die for policy slips. Dutch can replace them, but the replacements will quit once they see what happened to the last guys. It's not sustainable. August 6th, 1934, 7:15 a.m. This newspaper can now confirm the final 2 deaths in this 5-day campaign of retribution. James Murphy, age 44, and Edward Walsh, age 39. Both enforcers for the Schultz organization were found shot to death in Murphy's apartment on 144th Street early this morning. Both men were present at the Savoy Ballroom on Thursday evening. Both had ace of spades, cards placed with their booties. This brings the total death toll to 12 men, all associates of Mr. Schultz, all witnesses to the public humiliation of Mr. Johnson, all killed within a span of 5 days. The systematic nature of these killings, the precision of the targeting, and the clear symbolic message sent through the ace of spades cards combine to create what law enforcement sources describe as one of the most effective campaigns of intimidation they have ever witnessed in New York's criminal underworld. Police Commissioner Valentine held a press conference this morning to address the situation. He announced that the police department is treating these 12 murders as related incidents and that a special task force has been formed to investigate. However, the commissioner acknowledged what many in Harlem already know. Without witnesses willing to testify, without physical evidence linking any suspect to the crimes, and without any breaks in Mr. Johnson's apparent security, the likelihood of making arrests is extremely low. We know what happened, Commissioner Valentine stated. Everyone knows what happened, but knowing and proving are 2 different things in our legal system. We will continue to investigate, but I must be honest with the public. These cases will be very difficult to solve. The impact of these 5 days on Harlem has been profound. Business owners report that the neighborhood has been unusually quiet, with many residents staying home after dark, afraid of being caught in crossfire. The Savoy Ballroom, where this entire incident began, has seen its attendance drop by nearly half. Other entertainment venues report similar declines. The atmosphere is one of nervous anticipation, waiting to see whether Mr. Schultz will retaliate or withdraw, and whether Mr. Johnson's campaign is truly finished or will expand to target other Schultz associates beyond those present at the Savoy. This newspaper spoke with several Harlem residents yesterday about their feelings regarding these events. Their responses revealed a complex moral territory that Harlem's law-abiding citizens must navigate. One 51-year-old factory worker stated, "I don't like violence. I don't want my neighborhood to be a war zone, but I also can't pretend I don't understand why Bumpy did what he did. Dutch Schultz thought he could come into Harlem and treat us like we're nothing, like we don't deserve respect. Bumpy showed him different. I wish it could have been done without killing, but I'm not going to cry for Dutch Schultz's people." A 33-year-old schoolteacher offered a different perspective. What Bumpy Johnson did was murder. 12 times over. It doesn't matter what Dutch Schultz did at the Savoy. Murder is murder. But I also know that the police don't care about us. The courts don't protect us, so when someone like Bumpy stands up for us, even in this terrible way, a lot of people in Harlem see him as a hero. That's the tragedy of our situation. As of this morning, August 6, 1934, the situation appears to have reached a temporary equilibrium. No additional bodies have been discovered. Sources within the Schultz organization indicate that Mr. Schultz has ordered his remaining Harlem operatives to cease all activity and withdraw from the neighborhood. While no formal announcement has been made, the practical effect is that Mr. Schultz has surrendered Harlem to the St. Clair and Johnson operation. The public humiliation that Mr. Schultz inflicted on Mr. Johnson has resulted not only in 12 deaths, but in the complete collapse of the Schultz organization's Harlem presence. What Mr. Schultz intended as a demonstration of power has instead demonstrated his fundamental misunderstanding of Harlem, its community, and the men who protect it. Mr. Johnson has not been seen publicly since leaving the Savoy Ballroom on Thursday evening. This newspaper has learned from community sources that he is, however, very much present in Harlem, continuing to oversee the St. Clair organization's operations. The message he has sent through these 12 murders is unmistakable. Disrespect in Harlem, particularly racial disrespect, will be met with consequences that far exceed the initial offense. This message has resonated not only with the Schultz organization but with every criminal operation that might consider expanding into Harlem. Mr. Johnson has effectively drawn a line around the neighborhood and made clear that crossing that line carries costs that few are willing to pay. The legal and moral questions raised by these events will likely be debated for years to come. Vigilante justice. Even in response to genuine injustice, ever be justice. Does the failure of legitimate authority to protect Negro communities excuse the rise of figures like Mr. Johnson, who operate entirely outside the law? These are questions without easy answers. What is not in question is the practical reality. For the next several years at minimum, Harlem's criminal economy will be controlled by Miss St. Clair and Mr. Johnson, and anyone who wishes to challenge that control will have to account for the lesson taught in these 5 terrible days. The lesson is simple. Respect is not optional. Consequences are not negotiable, and Bumpy Johnson does not make empty threats. He makes promises, and he keeps every single one.